Hey, what's up? A few weeks ago, I posted a video all about large salads that I think taste good, and surprisingly, you guys seem to really like them. So today, I'm gonna show you 3 more options that are simple, easy to make, but most importantly, super craveable. This is weeknighting. The first salad is vaguely inspired by Middle Eastern flavors. Let's call it a Shawarma Tahini salad. To get started, I'll grab a small saucepan and drop it over medium heat so I can quickly pickle some golden raisins. In goes 250 grams of white distilled vinegar and 125 grams of sugar. Once that's up to a simmer, I'll add in 150 grams of golden raisins, and from there, I'll kill the heat and let these raisins soften and plump up in the pickle brine while I prep everything else for about 15 to 20 minutes. Next, I'll preheat my oven to 450 F 230C. I'll also drop a sheet tray in there to get hot, but more on that in a second. For now, I'll grab a few vegetables for this salad. The first of which is a half of a head of cauliflower. I'll cut that crosswise into thick, beefy planks like this, 1.5 inches give or take. Then I'll come back and cut those planks into nice chunky pieces, also about 1.5 to 2 inches across. I'm keeping these caulis relatively chunky so that they cook in the same amount of time as my next vegetable. That's delicata squash. This is a comically small version of this vegetable, so I'm going to need 2 of them to meet my salading needs. Normally you'd only need 1 because they're like twice the size of this on average. Now, using my peeler, I'm going to rip off that hard exterior skin. No need to get 100% of it. That stuff is edible, but too much is not good. It's particularly hard on the top and bottom, so I'll cut those off. Once it's peeled and cut in half, I'll use a spoon to scrape out all of the seeds. If you can't find delicata here, feel free to sub in butternut or sweet potato or even carrots. Once that's seeded, I'll cut these halves down top to bottom into 6 to 7 pieces. They're about a ½ inch thick. I'll turn it 90 degrees and then cut those in half. Now I've got some nice chunky delicata squash ready to roast. Now I'll scoot this into a bowl alongside my cauliflower, and as you can see, these 2 vegetables are sized pretty equally, and that should allow both of them to cook in roughly the same amount of time. Now to get these ready for the oven, I'll hit them with a very generous grip of salt and then a good long squiz of olive oil, at least 3 tablespoons. I'll toss everything to combine, and then I'll grab my very, very hot sheet tray from that 450 oven and then lay out these veggies. By the way, heating the sheet tray ahead of time in the oven really speeds up the cook time and saves us about 10 minutes in total, and since this is a weeknight recipe, that actually matters a lot. Now into the oven they go to roast for roughly 15 minutes. In the meantime, I'm going to grab the same bowl I just tossed the veg in and add 1 pound of boneless, skinless chicken thighs. Now I'll top them with 10 grams of salt, 2 grams of black pepper, 1 to 2 grams of dried oregano, 3 grams of garam masala, 5 grams of garlic powder, 1 gram of poultry seasoning or dried thyme would also work, 5 grams of ground cumin, 100 grams of Greek yogurt. Then I'll add the juice of half of a lemon or about 15 grams, and then I'll toss everything to combine. And I'll mention that this is the quick and dirty version of my weeknight shawarma from the shawarma taco video. Check that one out if you like to party. I was pretty happy with that recipe. Once these are all covered in gurt and spices, I'll lay them out on a little baby sheet tray that I've lined with foil and then load them into the oven to roast for 10 to 15 minutes. I'll be charring them after that, but more on that in a second. Let's get back to the vegetables. These have been in for about 10 minutes and they're looking promising, but to make sure, I'll give them a shake and then a taste for doneness. This one's still too crunchy though, so I'll throw these back in for 5 to 8 more minutes. 5 minutes later, or after 15 minutes in total of cooking, I'll pull out these vegetables, and as you can see, they're nicely caramelized, they're evenly cooked, and texturally they're right where they should be. They're soft but not mushy with just a touch of bite. Now I'm going to move my shawarma style thighs to the top rack and preheat my oven's broiler to high. From here, I'm going to broil and char these thighs on top for another 3 to 5 minutes or until they're well browned, caramelized, and taken on some deep char like this. Total cook time on the thighs is going to be about 10 minutes at 450 under the vegetables and then another 5 or so under the broiler. Once these are well charred, I'm going to quickly let them rest while I make the dressing for this salad. To do that, into a high-sided container, I'll measure 125 grams of tahini. Tahini thickness varies widely, so stay frosty and be prepared to adjust as we go here. Then 5 grams of salt, 25 grams of lemon juice, 15 grams of white vinegar, 5 grams of honey, 1 clove of garlic that I've pressed, 30 grams of olive oil, and 75 grams of water. Now I'll grab a spoon and stir everything to combine. I don't really understand it, but tahini somehow thickens when you stir it. Maybe it's absorbing the water, I'm not really sure, but after a few seconds it should be creamy and thick like this. I'm going to give it a taste now to make sure that the acid and salt are in balance, maybe a touch more salt, and there we go. A creamy, nutty, earthy lemon tahini dressing that's perfect for a Middle Eastern-ish salad. Now let's build one. As far as the base goes, I think standard issue mixed greens could be a decent option. I really can't recommend head lettuce like romaine or butterleaf though, because they're a little bit too wet and their natural crunch covers up the nice vegetable textures that we've got with the squash and the cauliflower. My preference here is arugula because it's a tad spicy, it's tender, and doesn't get in the way. The first thing behind that is going to be a large helping of that cauliflower and delicata blend. I'll follow that with some thinly sliced coins of cucumber. I really like these little baby ones that they have at the grocery stores these days. Compared to the large seedy English ones. They're far superior. Sorry, English people. Next, I'll drop down 2 dozen or so of these pickled golden raisins that we made earlier. As you can see, after 15 minutes of cool down, they're plump, tart, sweet, and ready to bring nice contrast and brightness to anything they're paired with. Next, I'll lay down some of my chicken. Usually 4 to 5 ounces is good for me. Again, I let this stuff rest for about 5 minutes and then gave it a nice rough chop like this. That looks really tasty, and it is. I'll confirm. Behind that, I'll give this salad a heavy dose of the creamy, saucy tahini dressing that we just made. I always go really heavy on that because it's mostly water actually, so it's not super calorie dense. The final piece is some sort of crunchy thing here. To keep on going with our loose Middle Eastern theme, I'm using some chopped pistachios here, but go with sunflower seeds or pumpkin seeds if you've got those on hand. And look at this. This one is a classic big ass salad, you guys. It's full of interesting textures and flavors. It's bold, it's craveable, and way more interesting than that chicken breast and iceberg thing that you've been eating. It's not authentically Middle Eastern at all, but the flavors go well together and they remind me of that region. Hopefully this one opens you up to something new and you make it soon. Up next is a very different style of salad. No oil, just pure flavor. I'm calling it the spring roll salad. First things first, I'm going to drop a few quarts of water in a tall saucepan over at the stove on high heat. Once that's at a ripping boil, I'll add in a very strong pinch of salt and then 1 pound of peeled, deveined, but tail-on shrimp. For reference, these are 2630 shrimps, so not a huge size. Once they're cooked, they're going to be perfectly bite-sized in a salad. As soon as the shrimp are in the water, I'll kill the heat to poach them gently for about 2.5 to 3 minutes. After about 2.5 minutes of cooking, I'll come back and fish out a couple of these shrimp to see how we're doing. When I give one a pinch, it feels pretty firm, but the only way to really know is to taste one. These shrimp should be plump, moist, and pleasantly toothsome, but not dry or rubbery. And these taste dope, so I'll fish them out of the water and throw them into my fridge to cool down while I finish everything else and thank the sponsor of this video, Future. Future is a fitness app that connects you with an online personal trainer who sends you new workouts each week, monitors your performance, and helps keep you motivated. My future coach is Kyle. He's trained professional athletes, random average Joes like me, and is an accomplished power lifter himself. After signing up with Future, I jumped on a call with Kyle and we chatted about fitness and what my overall health goals are.
Leg day sucks. Like, I really hate leg day.
From there, Kyle built me a routine that focuses on compound lifts and eccentric movement to help with my goal of overall fitness and being better at rock climbing. He also messages me directly before these workouts to keep me accountable, which I definitely need. If you don't have a gym, you don't need one to use Future. Your trainer will develop a plan to reach your goals based on whatever gear you have access to. Oh, and the app is designed to be used with an Apple Watch. That way your trainer can monitor your progress and workout data. And if you don't have an Apple Watch, Future sends you one to use during your membership. So to get a workout plan that's built specifically for you and keeps you motivated, go to tryfuture.co/Brian Lagerstrom to try your first month for $19. That's cheaper than most gym memberships. That's $19 to try Future for your first month with the link in my description. Thank you, Future. Back at the stove, I've got my shrimp water back up to a boil, and into that I'll drop 4 ounces or about 125 grams of rice noodles. These are very thin, almost vermicelli style noodles. The box called them My Fun. They're the closest I can get at the supermarket to the rice noodles that they use in Vietnamese style spring rolls. I'll cook these noodles per package instructions or for about 3 to 4 minutes at a full simmer, and once they're looking tender like this, I'll take them over to the sink. Once they're cooked, rice noodles need some extra attention to keep them from being stuck together. Generally, I rinse them under cold water through a strainer like this, then pop them back into a pot and run cold water over that. This lets me shake off any excessive starch and get the noodles separated a little bit. Then I like to set them up on a plate with some paper towels so that they can really drain off, because rice noodles stay a lot wetter than wheat ones for some reason, and this will really help keep our salad from being overly diluted with water. Now for the veggie part of the salad. First up is green cabbage. To prep that for the salad, I'll remove the core like this, then slice it as thinly as I can with a knife. If you're thinking of using a mandolin for this, I say go for it, but don't go too thin because that's not going to have enough texture to stand up in the salad. 200 grams of green cabbage in total. Next, I'll repeat the same move with some red cabbage. I just happen to have this little piece of red in my fridge, and I thought, ooh, that would make this salad pretty, so I'm using it, 100 grams of that in total. If you don't want to buy a secondary color of cabbage, I totally get it. Just go with 300 grams of green cabbage in total. Next, I'll grab a red bell pepper, cut off the sides and the bottom, and give it a thin slice just like the cabbage. 50 grams of red pepper going into the bowl. Then I'll cut some carrot. I've got a medium one here and a julienne peeler. If you haven't used one of these before, they're great for shredding raw vegetables. I'm pretty sure this is the exact tool that most Thai restaurants use to shred green papaya in the back for their classic Thai green papaya salad. They're like $5 and I've got mine at the Asian grocery store and I highly recommend it. This medium carrot yielded about 60 to 75 grams and into the bowl it goes. I also want to add some fresh cucumber to this salad. Instead of thinly slicing it or shredding it, I'm going to cut it into quarters and then dice it like this. It's more chunky this way and brings a lot more crunch without making the salad too wet. Cucumbers tend to do that. The last vegetable here is going to be a little bit of red onion. I've got just about a quarter of a small one here and I'm going to slice it as thinly as I can with a knife. I've got about 25 to 40 grams here in total, and to curb its sulfury edge, I'm going to scoot these onions into the strainer that I use for the rice noodles and rinse them well under cold water. In those go. Now to really double down on the freshness here, I'm going to rough chop some cilantro, a soft handful, maybe 10 grams in total, and then I'll do the same to some mint, 8 or 9 leaves or about 10 grams. Before I dress this salad, I'm going to pop all the tails off of the shrimp that we poached earlier, get those in the bowl, and once the salad is fully shrimped out, I'm going to add my drained rice noodles on top. This looks like a load of salad, I'll admit it, but when we dress it, it's going to shrink considerably. Speaking of dressing, I'm going to grab a little container and into that measure 60 grams of fish sauce, 40 grams of sugar, 20 grams of rice vinegar, 50 grams of lime juice, that's about 2 juicy limes. Behind that, 5 grams of grated garlic, 10 grams of grated ginger, and then lastly, I'll add in 15 grams of sambal sauce. Feel free to dial that up though if you're a chili head. Once this sauce is all stirred up to combine, I'll pour it all over my noodles and other stuff. To mix everything together, I'll grab some tongs, jump into the bowl, and then fold everything until it's well saturated with that salty, sweet, sour dressing. Since this is just liquids and no fat, the sauce is going to sink to the bottom and you'll need to really make sure that things are getting moved about and well coated. Without dressing, this is just raw vegetables and bland noodles. With dressing though, this is freaking dynamic. I love the aesthetic of Southeast Asian food. It's so bright and in your face, but it's also fresh and light. To finish, I'll top with a very, very generous amount of chopped toasted peanuts. To make those salad ready, I chopped them, and then this is important, I sifted out the peanut dust. If that were to stick around in a wet salad like this, it would make it seem like it has sand in it. We only want medium large pieces, and there we go. I'll top the nuts with some additional cilantro and mint to remind you in that first bite that this salad is not messing around, and then I'll drizzle some of that limey fish sauce water to keep things moistened up. You guys, this salad is perfect for hot weather. Think of it with some grilled chicken and cold beers, or just served as an entree when you and Boo want something light and fresh but full of flavor. I hope you try it soon. For the last salad, we're going to the 1990s mall parking lot. I'm talking about the classic, undisputed king of salads, the Italian. To get started, I'm going to make some croutons. For that, I'll drop 4 tablespoons or about 50 to 60 grams of butter into a small saucepan and then drop that on the stove over medium heat. While that melts, I'll preheat my oven to 350F, 175C, and then grab a big old chunk of bread to cut the tons. This bread is called Panda Campagna and I got it from Whole Foods. It's fine. It's not the most flavorful loaf in the world, but I didn't have any of my own bread in the house, and this will be more than good enough for croutons. Now, using my serrated knife, I'm going to zip off that crust around the outside. Then I'm going to dice this bread into 1/2-inch size pieces like this. No need for perfection here. Just try to get this stuff into relatively square size pieces. Once I've got 300 grams or 3/4 of a pound of bread diced up like this, I'm going to grab my melted butter and then drizzle that all over. Then in goes 3 grams of salt, 2 grams of garlic powder, and then 1 to 2 grams of dried oregano. I'll jump into the bowl now, toss all that to combine, and try to get that done as quickly as possible once the butter is in the bowl so that it doesn't get overly absorbed by just a few pieces of bread. Now, the buttery bread goes onto a sheet tray. I don't love that this loaf crumbled this much. Maybe it wasn't stale enough. There's no reason that's going to be bad on a salad though. It's just kind of bad form in my opinion. Now, into the oven the sheet tray goes to get all toasty and browned up for about 20 minutes. While those roast, I'll make the irresistible emulsified Italian vinaigrette. For that, I'll combine 45 grams of white distilled vinegar, 25 grams of champagne or white wine vinegar, 15 grams of sugar, 5 grams of salt, 20 grams of red onion, 10 grams of bell pepper, 1 clove of garlic, 25 grams of grainy or Dijon mustard, and then this blend of Italian spices. That's about 1/4 teaspoon each of oregano, basil, black pepper, and chili flake. I'll add those in, and then I'll grab 250 grams of a neutral oil. In this case, I'm using light colored olive. My immersion blender goes in, and now I'll puree the onions, bell pepper, and garlic with the mustard and herbs until a paste is starting to form. From there, I'll slowly drizzle in the oil, and as the emulsion gets closer and closer to the top of this container, it's getting thick, so I'm going to stop, make sure any oil sitting on top is fully spun in, and then I'll resume the drizzle until it's all in there. Thanks to that mustard, now we've got a fully emulsified vinaigrette that's loose and light, but creamy while not being too heavy. Thanks, mustard. Now I'll set this aside and then check back on my croutons. These have been roasting in the oven for about 15 to 20 minutes, and when I pull them out, you can see they're dry, crispy, and deeply golden brown. Like I said, that breadcrumby stuff is still usable. It's just not going to saturate with dressing quite like a proper crouton. Now, let's make a salad. The vehicle I'm using for this style of salad is of course going to be head lettuce. Specifically, I'm using little gem lettuce. This is by far my favorite variety in the cause lettuce family. See all that tight yellow core in there? That's going to fully separate your salad from the pack. It's crunchy, wet, and has a soft bitterness to it that makes for an amazingly crisp salad. Behind the lettuce, I'm going to add in some thinly sliced red onions and then a handful of halved cherry tomatoes. Behind the tomatoes, I'll add in 5 to 7 colossal black olives. Yes, that's what they're called. They're absolutely gigantic, and I love them. Sliced or halved or even green olives just won't do, in my opinion. Behind the tomatoes and olives, I'll add in 4 to 5 whole pepperoncinis, also known as pepperoncini doggies. Oh, next in is 8 to 9 cubes of fresh mozzarella cheese. I had these in my fridge on hand for making pizza, so that's what I use, but those cute little mozzarella pearls would also be a great option. Then I'll add in some thinly sliced salami from the St. Louis institution Volpe. This is soppressata, and I've sliced it up kind of thin so that the strips don't stick together. That kind of helps distribute them throughout the salad. I'll finish with a large handful of the buttery garlic croutons that we just made, and then 5 to 6 tablespoons of the dressing. Don't be shy, this salad is like literally all about the dressing. To help balance the acidity here and bring some amazing umami roundness, I'm going to drop in a ton of grated Parmesan cheese. Now to finish this salad, I'm going to grab some tongs and give this kind of an aggressive toss. Don't be shy, because a salad like this actually benefits from being roughhoused a little bit. I can see this is a touch dry though right off the bat, so I'm going to add in a little bit more dressing and quite a bit more Parmesan. I'll give it one more toss, and then I'll finally give it a taste. The added fat from the salty cheese should soften the tartness here and really round things out and create kind of a perfect binary system. Once we're there, I'm going to throw this salad into a bowl, making sure to top it with a bunch more dressing and a bunch more parm. You guys, this salad really one-ups anything you're going to get at a Gino's, Guido's, Gina's, or even an Olive Garden. It's crunchy, it's soft, it's creamy but tart, and it's wet but not soggy. Whether you go for the tahini shawarma, the spring roll, or the Italian, I think you're going to have a good time. All 3 of these salads make for nourishing, satisfying meals that taste very good. Let's eat this thing.